morning students. Today we are going to learn about problem solving methodology, that is we have studied in our previous class. Today we are going to study other concepts which are there in this chapter. In our previous class we have studied about what is problem solving and different stages of problem solving and what is an algorithm and the characteristics of the algorithm, and I gave you an example for the algorithm and flowchart. Flowchart also we studied and different symbols in flowchart and types of flowchart. These are the different topics what we studied in our previous class. So in today's class we are going to study about coding and programming and testing, debugging and different types of errors and documentation and maintenance. So I told you there are different stages of problem solving. In that stages we have studied the problem definition, problem analysis and design of the problem, that is algorithm and flowchart. And today we are going to study that is coding and programming, testing, debugging and different types of errors and documentation and maintenance. So let us see what it is. Coding and programming. Coding and programming means it is a process of translating the algorithm of flowchart into a syntax, that is into a code. We are writing a program of a given programming language. The programming language can be C or C++, Java, any kind of language. Using that language we are writing the program, that is we are translating the algorithm of flowchart into a syntax, into a code. So that is called as coding and programming. The next stage is testing. Once we write the code, we have to run the program. So when we run the program, we are executing all the instructions or the statements which are there in the program and checking the logic by entering a simple data or a data sample data we have to enter to check the output. This is known as testing. That is we are running the program and executing its instructions, functions and checking the logic by entering the sample data to check the output. So the output is correct or not, or if the program is running correctly or it is executing all the programs, all the instructions. So this will be checked during the testing. The next one is debugging. In case errors are there when you are testing, so you are finding some errors in the program, then those errors has to be identified and it should be corrected, and we have to remove all those errors from the program. So this is known as debugging. Debugging is a process of identifying, correcting or removing the bugs or errors. So there are different types of errors. So there are three types of errors. They are syntax error, semantic error and runtime errors. So let us see what is a syntax error. Syntax means some rules has to be followed while programming. So I'll be telling write the syntax properly, the syntax is wrong. Then you should know that syntax means we are following some rules when we are writing the program. Some grammatical rules has to be followed when we are writing a program. When we violate those grammatical rules, then we call it as syntax error. These errors occur when grammatical rules of the programming language is violated. So when we have to write in a small letter, you have to write in small letters. In case if you write in a capital letter, then it is a grammatical rules are being violated. Or if you have to put a semicolon at the end of each statement, you are not using a semicolon, then it is a grammatical error. So this type of errors, when it occurs, then it is called as syntax error. Then we have semantic errors or logical errors. When you are writing the program, you are using a wrong logic in the program. You are not writing a correct logic. It will not work when you use this logic, the program, and we are not getting the output correctly. Then it is called a semantic error or a logical error. The last type of error is runtime error. Runtime error occurs during the execution of the program. So once you write the program, you run the program, and you get a grammatical errors, that is the syntax errors, then you are correcting those errors, then you get semantic errors, and again you are correcting those errors. Then when you run the program, finally you have to run the program. That time if you get any errors, then it is known as runtime errors. So these are the different types of errors. It is important to know the different types of errors, that is syntax error, semantic error. Semantic error is also known as logical error, and the last one is runtime error. So these are also known as bugs. Bugs means some errors which are seen in your programs. So these errors has to be rectified, should be corrected. Finally, we come to documentation. Documentation is a reference material which explains the use and maintenance of the program or application for which it has to be written. There are two types of documentation. One is internal documentation, the other one is external documentation. The internal documentation means it is also known as technical documentation. It is meant for programmer who may update the program code at later stages. So he has completed the entire program and the program is running, everything is fine, but later it has to get updated. In that case, they can use this documentation to update the program code. So in this documentation, it may include the variable names which are used in the program, and it will also include the remarks or the comments in each program code, and also the remarks on every module indicating its purpose. All these details will be written in the internal documentation. The other type of documentation is external documentation. So this is useful to the user, administrator and the developer. They will use the external documentation. It will give the information about the application, what type of application the program is doing or the entire software is doing. So this kind of information will be given to the user, administrator or the developer. So there are three types of documents in the external documentation, that is user manual, administrator manual and developer manual. So user manual, it will contain the operating instruction of the application for the user. When the user is using an application, he should know how to use it. In case if he doesn't know, he can use the user manual to find out the details about the application, and the information of the application will be given in detail to make the user easy to use the application. So the next type of documentation is administrator manual. It will contain the instruction for the user who is going to manage the application in future. So the administrator will know how to manage the application. For that he needs this manual, that is administrator manual. Okay, the third type of manual is developer manual. It will contain low-level flowcharts, decision tables, files and the complete system chart so that the application can be easily updated. So these are the three manuals or the documents which are there in the external documentation. The last stage of problem solving is maintenance. Program maintenance means periodic review of the programs and modifications based on the user requirement. Program maintenance means that the program which has been developed becomes outdated with time. Sometimes errors may occur, or depending on the changing rules and the user requirements, program need to be modified or updated. So this is known as program maintenance, that is your periodic review of the programs. And in case the user needs any modification, it has to be done. To improve the clarity and the fresh documentation may be needed. So maintenance is a continuous task. Documentation plays an important role in program maintenance. It helps speedy and efficient maintenance. Let us have a recap of different stages of problem solving. So this is one of the important questions for 5 marks. You have to explain the different stages of problem solving. Problem solving means expressing the solution to the problem, to any kind of problem in terms of simple operation. Then we call it as problem solving. So we are giving a solution to a problem. So we are having different stages in case of problem solving. So we have to start with problem definition. That is, problem definition means you are defining the problem. So any kind of real life problem or abstract problem, it has to be defined by answering few questions like what the computer program will do, and what task will it perform, what kind of data will it use, and where will it get the data, and how will be the output of the program, and how does a program interact with the user, computer user. So all these questions has to be answered during the problem definition. The next stage is problem analysis. In case of problem analysis, we have to identify the inputs, the data you have to work with, output the desired result, what kind of result you need, and any additional requirements or the conditions when we are writing the program. So what kind of requirements is needed has to be identified. So in the second stage we are identifying the input, output and any additional requirements. In the third stage is designing of the solution. So we are using algorithm and flow chart in order to design the solution using algorithm and flow chart. So what is this algorithm? Algorithm is a step-by-step procedure, okay, or a sequence of instruction to solve a well-defined problem. So we are using a step-by-step procedure in order to solve a problem. So that is known as algorithm. And I gave you an example to find the simple interest. We are using an algorithm and solving the problem. That is, using algorithm we are able to write a step-by-step procedure. And also I told you about the characteristics of the algorithm, that is that different characteristics of the algorithm is input, definite, effective, terminate and output. So all these characteristics will give a well-defined algorithm. Okay, the next, before that also I told you about the flow chart. Flow chart is a diagrammatic representation of the algorithm, and they told you about the different symbols which are used in the flow chart. The next stage of problem solving is coding. The next stage is coding. Coding or programming, that is, we are translating the algorithm of flowchart into a syntax of a given programming language. You can use the language like C, C++, Java, etc. in order to convert each step of the algorithm into a programming statement. So this is known as coding. Testing and debugging. Testing means running the program and executing all its instruction or the functions and checking the logic of the program, and we are entering some sample data to check whether the output what we get is correct. All this happens at this stage. That stage is known as testing. Then comes debugging. Debugging is a process of finding and correcting the program code mistakes. We are correcting the mistakes or the errors during the debugging, and these errors which occur during the testing, and later we debug the errors, that is correct the errors, and the errors are known as mistakes. So these mistakes has to be eliminated from the program, and then it should be rectified, and then the program has to be executed. So there are different types of errors, that is syntax errors, semantic error or the runtime error. All these are the different types of error. So we come across the syntax error, means it is a grammatical error, that is the grammatical rules of the programming language. If it is violated, then we'll get the syntax error. Then we have a logical error or a semantic error. Logical error or the semantic error is the error that occurs when we use a wrong logic in the program. Whenever the logic of the program is wrong, then we get a semantic error. Then we have got another type of error, that is runtime error. Runtime error occurs when we are executing the program and when we are entering some data in the input data to the that is to get the output. So in that case we will get some errors. In that these errors are known as runtime errors. Okay, this happens during the testing and debugging. The next stage is documentation and maintenance. Documentation means we are having a reference material, okay, which will explain the use and maintenance of the program. So this documentation is important for further updation of the program or further maintenance of the program. We need a documentation. So what is done in the program, all this has to be mentioned in the documentation. So there are two types of documentation. One is internal documentation. The other one is external documentation. The last stage of problem solving is maintenance. Program maintenance means a periodic review of the programs and modifications based on the user requirements. Programs that are developed becomes outdated with time. Sometimes error may creep in. So depending on the changing rules and user requirements, program need to be modified. That will be done during the maintenance stage. So these are the different stages of problem solving. That is, first one is problem definition, defining the problem. problem analysis means identifying the input, output and additional system requirements. Then we have design of the solution, that is we are using two design techniques, that is algorithm and flowchart. Algorithm is a step-by-step procedure in order to solve a program, and the flowchart is a diagrammatic representation of the algorithm. So these are the techniques which are used in designing of the solution. Next is coding. Coding means you are translating the algorithm or the flowchart into a programming language. So different programming languages like C, C++ is used. Testing and debugging. Testing is correct. Testing is we are checking the errors. So we are already, the program has been developed and we have to test. That is, you have to run the program and executing all the instructions, then we call it as testing. Debugging means correcting the errors. Documentation. Documentation is a reference material, and maintenance is periodic review of the program or the periodic review of the programs, and modification must be done based on the user requirement. So these are the different stages of problem solving. Let us see the different flowchart symbols. This is also one of the important question. So you can see the symbol over here and the name and what function it does. You can see a oval shape. This oval shape is used for the start and end, and when you are beginning the program and when you are ending the program, you use this oval shape in order to start and end the program. That is, in order to draw a flowchart, we have to use the first symbol is start symbol and the last symbol should be the stop symbol. That is, we have come to an end of the flowchart. Then we have arrows. Arrows can be in different direction, and these arrows are used in order to connect one symbol, one shape, that is one symbol to another symbol. It will connect one symbol to the another symbol. The next symbol of flowchart is parallelogram. A parallelogram is used for input and output, and whenever we give input to a data and also when we get the output, we are using this parallelogram. Then we have a process symbol. Process symbol is used mainly for calculation and manipulations which are done inside the program, for that process symbol. And then we have a rhombus, that is a diamond shape, that will indicate a decision. When we take any kind of decision in the program, we are using this rhombus symbol. Let us see an example for an algorithm and a flowchart. This algorithm is written to find the sum of two numbers. What is an algorithm? Algorithm is a step-by-step procedure in order to solve a problem. So here step 1 we have got start. Step 2 input A comma B. So two inputs we need because we are finding the sum of two numbers. So two variable names, that is A and B. So input A and B. Then step 3 we are finding the output, that is processing takes place here. That is A plus B is added and the value will be stored in sum. Suppose A is 5 and B is 2. 5 plus 2 will be added and the sum 7 will be stored in sum. So output will be sum. Sum value is 7. And then we stop. Stop is the last step. So we are starting with start and ending with stop. So input A comma B, two values we have to input. Then we calculate. Calculation should be done. A plus B, that is whatever the value of A and B keeps changing. First time it can be 5, 2, next time 7, 8. So any number, okay, A and B can take. So the two numbers will be added and this output will be stored in sum. So that output will be displayed here, sum. And finally you stop the process. So this is how you write an algorithm. This is a simple algorithm to understand how to write an algorithm to find the sum of two numbers. Now let us see the flowchart in order to find the sum of two numbers. I told you in the flowchart symbols are there, different types of symbols are there. This oval shape symbol that is used for start, and then you have got input A comma B, this symbol for parallelogram, and then you have got sum is equal to A plus B, that whatever value, that is two values what you have input. For example, if you have input A is equal to 5 and B is equal to 2, So 5 plus 2, 7. 7 will be stored in sum. So finally you have to output that sum. So the final result will be stored in sum, and finally you stop the process. This is how a flowchart has to be drawn. It's a diagrammatic representation of the algorithm. So in our algorithm what we are writing, same thing we are representing in the form of flowchart in a diagrammatic representation.